This leads us back to the idea of potential and to the questions of whether tests or experts can tell us what our potential is, what we have capable of, what our future will be. The fixed mindset say you can simple measure the fixed ability right now and project it into the future. Just give the tasks, just give tests or ask the expert, no crystal ball needed. So common in the belief the potential can be known right now that Joseph P. Kennedy felt confident telling Morton Downey Jr. that he would be a failure. What had Downey, later a famous television personality and author, done? Why we had worn red socks and brown shoes to the Stock Club, a fancy New York nightclub. Morton Kennedy told him, I don't know anybody I ever met in my life wearing red socks and brown shoes who ever succeeded. Young man, let me tell you now, you do stand out, but you don't stand out in a way that people will ever admire you. Many of the most accomplished people of our era were considered by experts to have no future. Jackson, Pollock, Marcel Proust, Elvis Presley, Ray Charles, Lucille Ball, and Charles Darwin were all thought to have little potential for their chosen field, and in some of these cases, it may well have been true that they did not stand out from the crowd early on. But isn't potential someone capacity to develop their skills with efforts and coaching over time? And that's just the point. How can we know where efforts, coaching, and time will take someone? Who knows? Maybe the expert were right about the Jackson, Marcel, Elvis, Ray, Lucille, and Charles in terms of their skills at time. Maybe they were not yet the pupil they were to become. I once went to the exhibit in London of Paul Cézanne early painting on the way there I wondered who Cézanne was and what his painting were like before he was the painter we know today. I was intensely curious because Cezanne is one of my favorite artists and the man who set the stage for much of modern art. Here's what I found: some of the paintings were pretty bad. They were overwrought scenes, violent, some violent, with amateurs, amateurishly painted people. Also, there were some paintings that foreshadowed the later Cezanne. Many did not was early Cezanne not talented, nor did it just take time for Cezanne to become Cezanne. People with growth mindset knows that it takes time for potential to flower. Recently, I got an angry letter from the teacher who had taken one of our survey. The survey portrays a hypothetical student, Jennifer, who had gotten 65% on a math exam. It then asks teachers to tell us how they would treat her. Teachers with the fixed mindset were more than happy to answer our questions. They felt that by knowing Jennifer's scores, they had a good sense of who she was and what she was capable of. Their recommendation abandoned Mr. Rondon, by contrast, was fuming. Here's what he wrote: to whom it may concern, having completed the educators portions of your recent survey, I must request that my results be excluded from the study. I felt that the study itself is scientifically unsound. Unfortunately, the test uses a faulty premise, asking teachers to make assumptions about a giving a student based on nothing more than a numbers on a page. Performance cannot be based on the assessment. You cannot determine the slope of a line given only 1 point. As there is no line to begin with, a single point in time does not show trends. Improvement, lack of efforts, or mathematical ability. Sincerely, Michael D. Rondon. I was delighted with Mr. Rondon critics and couldn't have agreed with it more. An assessment at one point in time has little value for understanding someone's ability, let alone their potential to succeed in the future. It was disturbing how many teachers thought otherwise, and that was the point of our study. The idea that one evaluation can measure you forever is what creates the urgency for those with the fixed mindset that why they must succeed perfectly and immediately, who can afford the luxury of trying to grow when everything is on the line right now. Is there another way to judge potential? NASA thought so. When they were soliciting application for astronauts, they reject people with pure histories of success and instead selected people who had significant failures and bounced back from them. Jack Vlich, the celebrated CEO of General Electric, choose executive on the basis of runway, their capacity for growth, and remember Marina Samo Samonova, the famed belt teacher who chose the students who were energized by criticism. They were all rejecting the idea of fixed ability and selecting a stat for mindset. Proving you're special. When people with a fixed mindset opt for success over growth, what are they really trying to prove? That they are especially even superior. When we ask them, when do you feel smart? So many of them talk about times they felt like a special person, someone who was different from and better than other people. Until I discovered the mindset and how they work, I too thought of myself as more talented than others, maybe even more worthy than others because of my endowment. The scariest thoughts, which I which I rarely entertain, was the possibility of being ordinary. This kind of thinking led me to need constant validation. Every comment, every look was meaningful. It registered on my intelligence scorecard, my attractiveness scorecard, my ability scorecard. If my day went well, I could bask in my high numbers. One bitter cold winter night, I went to a opera. That night, the opera was everything you hope for, and everyone stayed until the very end. Not just the end of the opera, but through all the curtains calls. Then we all poured into the street, and we all wanted taxis. I remember it clearly. It was after midnight. It was 7 degrees. There was a strong wind, and a time went on. I became more and more miserable there. I was part of an undifferentiated crowd. What chance did I have? Suddenly, a taxi pulled up right next to me. The handle of the back door lined up perfectly with my hand, and as I entered, the driver announced, "You were different." I live for these moments. Not only was I special, I could be detected from a distance. The self esteem movement encourages this kind of thinking and has even invented devices to help you confirm your superiority. I recently came across an ad for such a product. Two of my friends sent me an illustrated list each year of the top 10 things that they didn't get me for Christmas. Even January through November, they clip candidate items from catalogs or downloads them from the internet. In December, they select the winners. One of my all-time favorite is the pocket toilet, which you fold up and return to your pocket after using. This year, my favorite was the I Love Me mirror, a mirror with I Love Me in huge capital letters written across the bottom half. By looking into it, you can administer the message to yourself and not wait for the outside world to announce your specialness. Of course, the mirror is harmless. Encourage. The problem is when special begins to mean better than others, a more valuable human being, a superior person, an entitled person. Special, superior, entitled. McNamara had a fixed mindset. He believed that talent was all. He did not love to learn. He did not thrive or challenge. When when the going got rough, he often folded as a result by his own admissions. He did not fulfill his potential, but his talent was so great that he was the number one tennis player in the world for 4 years. Here we tell us what it was like to be number one. McEnroe used sawdust to observe the sweat on his hand during a match. This time, the sawdust was not his liking, so he went over to the can of sawdust and knocked it over with his racket. His agent Carey came dashing over to find out what was wrong. You call that sawdust? I said. I was actually screaming at him. The sawdust was ground too fine. This looks like a rat poison. Can't you get anything right? So Gray ran out and 20 minutes later came back with a fresh can of Crozer sawdust and $20 less in his pocket. He had to pay a union employee to grind up a 2 by 4. This is what it was like to be a number one. He goes on to tell us about how he once threw up all over dignified Japanese lady who was hosting him. The next day, Shibo apologized to him and presented him with a gift. This, McNamara proclaims, is also what it was like to be a number one. Everything was about you. Did you get everything you need? Is everything okay? We'll pay you this, we'll do that, we'll kiss you, you're behind. You only have to do what you want. Your reaction to anything else is get the hell out of here. For a long time, I didn't mind it a bit, would you? So let's see. If you successful, you better than other people. You get to abuse them and have them grovel. In the fixed mindset, there is what can pass for self-esteem. As a contrast, let's look at Michael Jordan growth mindset, growth minded athlete per excellence, whose greatness is regularly proclaimed by the world Superman, God in person, Jesus in tennis shoes. If anyone has reason to think of himself as a special, is he. But here's what he said when his return to basketball caused a huge commotion. I was shocked with the level of intensity of coming back to the game created. People were praising me like I was religious cult or something. That was very embarrassing. I'm a human. I'm a human being like everyone else. Jordan knew how hard he had worked to develop his abilities. He was a person who had struggle and growth, not a person who was inherently better than others. Tom Wolfe, in The Right Stuff, described the elite military pilot who eagerly embraced the fixed mindset, having passed one rigorous test after another. They think of themselves as special as people who were born smarter and brave than other people. But Chuck Yeager, the hero of the right stuff, back differ. There is no such thing as a natural born pilot. Whatever my aptitude or talent, becoming a proficient pilot was hard work, really a lifetime learning experience. The best pilots fly more than the others. That's why they are the best. Like Michael Jordan, he was a human being. He just stretched himself further than most. Short people who believe in fixed traits felt felt an urgency.